Hi, this is Megan, and I'm here with the sketch number 2 from the February 2021 Creative Memories Virtual Crop. If you're looking for a copy of this sketch, you can find it on the Creative Memories blog under February 2021. It is from the Virtual Crop sketch number 2. I also have it uploaded into the Facebook group. There is a copy of the sketch that does not have the measurements on it, and then there is one that I've uploaded that has these measurements. So you can see it's a 2-page layout. Some of the noticeable aspects of this sketch are the circle elements here. We have kind of a broad or a wide band of differing paper here in the middle, and they do show some border elements on either side, the top and the bottom of that center band. It has several small photos. It also has a square photo and a horizontal and a vertical. My approach to this would definitely be to put your background together first and then kind of see how your images play in there. I know these smaller photos can sometimes be a challenge to get to. So if you can't get the smaller ones, just put a single photo there. You can do another 4x4 in each corner. You could do a 4x5, just kind of play with it a little bit. So I am going to stay fairly true to the sketch. I do have the ability to print my photos on demand. So I was able to print kind of to the size I knew would work. I did take this horizontal photo. I broke it into 2 halves. So there's 2 vertical photos because all of my photos from the day were pretty much vertical. So the photos I'm using are from when I took my son to one of the local beach parks. I'm up here in the Seattle area, and we were able to go down to the Puget Sound and by one of the ferry docks. And my son loves to throw rocks in the water. It was kind of low tide, so he was able to kind of look under the rocks and find all sorts of fun stuff. So I've got, lots of blues, very water oriented. So I am going to be using Deep Blue Sea. I have a little bit of that left out of my stash. And so to get started here, I've gone ahead and I've already cropped and matted all of my photos. I used light gray cardstock, and I have a little bit of a generous mat around my photos. The sketch itself, there's not a lot of photos on here. You have a lot of space. So I wanted to give my photos just a little bit more presence on the page itself. So I went fairly generous with my mat. I think in this sketch, I listed being a good 1/4 inch all the way around, maybe a little bit less than a 1/4 inch on these smaller photos. And I was kind of pretty much true to that on my mats. So I have a very tonal base for my page, and in the sketch they have 2 backgrounds that are a different color or different paper, so that kind of that center section there, and it is slightly centered. It's not quite centered on the page. It's going to be a little bit higher, and I'm going to grab my 13x13 mat so that I can put this together and be consistent across the 2 pages. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this down, and I'm not going to center at that 6 inch. These are both just 6 inches wide by 10.5 or 6 inches tall by 10.5 wide. That's the dimension that I give on the sketch, and that's what I went with for my own page. And I would say I'm going to probably 3 inches from top and bottom would be centered. I'm going to offset this by 1/2 inch towards the top. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my adhesive and put this down. I am going to only adhere kind of in the middle. I'm going to leave my outside edges where I can kind of lift them, because I am going to add in some kind of a small dividing piece. I've got some blue cardstock that I'm going to be using to put a little bit of a border definition between the 2 pattern papers. Otherwise, they kind of blend into each other just a little bit. So I'm going to eyeball this one just a little bit. So I've got that in there. So now I've got these strips And what I'm doing, if we look back here at the sketch, there's a border detail here that is between this broad band of color or of paper, between that and the background. They actually show us kind of a, a different pattern or a different color here, and then a border. I am just going to keep it simple. I'm just using a piece of blue cardstock that I've cut to about 5/8 of an inch. I didn't want, when I started piecing this together, it was starting to get just a little too busy for me. And the other thing I want to note here is some of these big elements cover up a lot of the edging. So I know I only need to really worry about this, bottom segment here, a little bit here and over here. I am going to flank, I think, on the side and go ahead and almost give that. So this center section here looks like it has a whole mat around it, but I don't need to actually mat the whole thing because I've got some big elements that cover up a good portion of that outer edge. So I've got the strips here. I will actually be tucking those in once I start putting my elements on the page so I can see what overlaps. So I've got some strips of the blue paper. I've cut 3 of them. I think I can do 3 of them and do the whole, all the pieces. The other thing I wanted to do is I really love the Kissing Fish Border Maker cartridge. So I am using that, and I'm deviating from the sketch here. They show the border detail here. I am going to actually do the top and the bottom with the Kissing Fish. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in place. I just like the way they looked. It just kind of felt like it framed things in just a little bit more. So that was kind of why I decided to do that. Keeping it fairly tonal. The blue just kind of, it doesn't get super, it doesn't do a lot of, it doesn't compete, which is always kind of nice. You want it to be just a little bit of some decoration without it competing with the overall design of the page. So this is going to be a fairly tonal layout, really playing on the blues. And that's going to allow the photos to really stand out nicely once I get those on the page. And one more strip that I'll put at the top. I struggled quite a bit with trying to figure out exactly which papers to use. I did, I will admit, I opened up another pack of the Deep Blue Sea paper because I had stashed away another set of papers because I really like it. And living up here in Washington State, Deep Blue Sea is the perfect type of water or ocean kind of base nautical papers for us here because we're not very tropical, as you can imagine. So Deep Blue Sea is gorgeous for our Puget Sound and Northwest Pacific pages. So there we've got this going. I have cut some circles. So I cut the large circle is about 8.5 inches in diameter. So it was cut with the jumbo circle on the inside track with the green blade. And if you go to the directions, it does say that here at the bottom. Jumbo circle, inside track with the green blade. I actually may have used the red blade. I wanted to get it a little bit bigger because I'm using slightly bigger photos. So it's up ever so slightly. It does deviate here. It overlaps onto the other page. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut it just on the other side, just to the left of these sailboats. So if I go clear to over, I think I'm over too far, but I don't really want to cut my sailboats down the middle because when I start putting everything between them, it's going to be a little bit crazy. So I am going to cut, and I'm going to use my sight guides here to come down, and I need to pull my paper a little bit more. Check my other sailboat. Looks good. I'm going to go ahead and slice. So I am actually at 1.25 inches. That is what I'm cutting here. And I think I look pretty straight. I don't want my C's to be too tilted. So that's going to line up there. yeah, I liked keeping those sailboats on that side. So my photos, I'm going to start kind of laying them into place a little bit too, because I want to, before I get too many more things on here, I need to kind of make sure that I've got my spacing good. The crab that we, trying to find these tiny little crab, and that crab right there is probably the size of maybe a $50, real small. And my son spent a lot of time looking for them. They're very quick. They do not like to be photographed. And we always stop at Ivers, which has a little restaurant right there by, we were at the Mukilteo Lighthouse Beach. I don't know how many of you are familiar at all with the Seattle area, but we were up at Mukilteo Lighthouse Beach. It's by the Boeing's big Everett facility, and they have an Ivers there. So if you get on the ferry, you can grab some takeout from Ivers, fish and chips and stuff, but they have delicious root beer floats. And so it's always a treat. We stopped. It was pretty warm that day, so we stopped and got ourselves a nice, delicious root beer float. So I do have this. This is the first circle that I cut, and I did cut it a little bit larger than my directions show, my sketch shows. And the reason I did that is because I'm pretty certain I am going to go ahead and cut a journal box or journal circle here. And I was worried if I went with the size, the 3-inch diameter that I indicate here in this sketch, that it was just going to be too small by the time I get a journal amount in there and actually say anything. And I do have a little bit of journaling I want to do. So we can kind of see here is how it's starting to take shape. And I like that. I do have some stickers and other things I will be adding. But now what I want to do is I want to show you, I need to tuck in these pieces. But what you can see is that I'm only going to need a small segment to go behind this there. So I'll go ahead and cut. You can see here, I just need, and I'm going to tuck it in right under here. And I'm just going to eyeball it for the actual amount that sticks out above the paper. So this will cover that up. I'm going to need a little bit over here so I can see that that circle on the bottom corner is going to cover quite a bit. And of course this also covers quite a bit, that square picture. So I'll put that down. And now that I've got this corner done, I'm going to actually go ahead and put my crab photo on. And I want to make sure that my crab photo, I don't think I want him overlapping the fish at the top. I want him to make sure I can see this fish all the way across. I think I'm not going to push down. I've got removable adhesive on there. I'm not going to push down. I'm going to give myself a little bit of ability to play with that. So these circles, I have a definite, pattern to it. I don't really want to tilt my ships going upwards. So when I put this on, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I keep those as straight across as I can. And I will go ahead and I'm going to put in another small section of blue banding at the bottom. Just tuck this in under here. And that's just giving some nice separation between the rope paper and the other part. So before I tape this down, I'll put in another section over here. And I would say I probably have about a half an inch that's sticking out. I'm just double checking My photo here is going to overlap. I'm going to come in here now, and I am just going to go ahead and put a little bit of adhesive here to get that to stick down. I will go ahead and I'm going to put my larger center photo here. I'm using the pattern of the paper to help me line things up. And so I can tell here I have off a little bit on my paper. It's going to be really noticeable down here at the bottom. So I'm going to make a quick adjustment to this. Of course, when I put it on there, I just tried to eyeball it. Eyeballing it didn't work so well. So I'm going to, now I can have them right next to each other. I can line it up. And that's going to work a lot better. So when they're next to each other, you are going to really notice it when I put this, the blue banding on there was going to make it really apparent that they were not lined up properly. So we'll go ahead, I'm going to place my, other half of my, or the other portion of my circle on here. And I'm just going to go ahead, I think I'm just going to line it up. Yes, I'm just going to line it up between the 2 points here. And I'm going to need a tiny bit of blue banding right here. So I'll tuck that in. I'm going to line these papers up right next to each other. My fish are matching nicely. And I'm just going to make sure that I get that banding in place. I'm going to need some banding at the bottom, another little section. And this is, I could just put strips in place and I wouldn't have had to worry, you know, to be so particular about it or to piece these bits in. But this is just me being a little bit frugal and just showing that, you know, when you're putting together things like this, you really just have to pay attention to what is going to be seen. And once you have that figured out, you can start piecing in things, and it really saves on paper. If I was using a decorative paper, that would really save me, you know, I would have more decorative paper left over. I'm using scraps of blue cardstock to make these. So I don't think I was able to just cut some 1/2-inch strips off, and it made it just, you know, just wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll put these photos on. Leave the sailboats showing. I'm not pushing down hard on these photos yet. That's going to give me the ability to move them if I need to. I'm going to see here. I'm not sure. I'm a little torn still on this corner. This corner is still causing me a little bit of grief because I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to handle journaling on this particular page. I am a terrible procrastinator when it comes to journaling. So I sometimes always think that I need to just print it out, but printing it on a circle is going to be a challenge. So I will probably use a journaling, the journal paper, trim it with a circle, and write on there. And I'm going to put another little section here. I know a lot of this corner is covered up by the photo, so we just need to make sure it gets underneath that circle, and then it's going to get over here with the, grab the, I pushed down just a little too much and it started to stick more than I wanted. Now I have 2 photos here. Now what I have going on is I want to make sure when I'm overlapping my photos that I don't want to overlap like this. I want to give it so you can see what he's looking down towards. And I have a lot of extra space here, so I'm going to go ahead and overlap it with the photo that has the most space. So I'll do something along those lines. That's kind of something to think about when you are putting your photos on, is how you want them to overlap. You want to overlap so that you're not losing detail. Sometimes you can crop deliberately to make sure you give yourself space for overlap. I wanted just to show off how much, how nice the blue water looked gorgeous. We had beautiful skies that day. There's the one of the islands across the sound there. So I have some space here. I may actually put my journaling in here. Got some embellishments I can play with. I have a title here I'm going to do at the top. I do have 2 photos for over here. And once again, kind of, knowing what my spacing is there. And then the title, I'm going to do a title called Just Seize the Day. A play on a word with the word sea, seas like the ocean. And I'm doing that because, like I said, we had a really, really rough day with virtual learning. And my son started kindergarten this year and he was doing virtual learning and we had a rough day. It was not a good day. So we packed ourselves up and went and got lunch down by the ferry and went and threw rocks in the ocean and had a good time hunting down the various sea creatures and such. So I will probably go ahead and do some journaling in this area. I do have quite a bit of room here. The sketch shows for kind of a ribbon detail here. So there's just lots of opportunity right in here to do some stuff. I will sprinkle on some more stickers and such, but here is the gist of this sketch. It's a lot of fun to put together. I love the deep blue sea. I hope we get another collection that's kind of along those lines with the blue and the nautical. So please share if you put together sketch number 2 from the crop, and I would love to see it. Thanks.